What?
The garage door just opened.
What?
The garage door is opening.
It's probably just the garbage truck.
And now they're in the house.
What? Where's my bat?
It's a nightmare scenario. That garage door mechanism you bought specifically to keep your family safe and your possessions safe has turned out to be useless. Some random stranger unlocked it with some digital device and is now in your garage and your house even, rummaging around. But how could that happen if you're the only one with the remote? The answer lies in the way devices generate and protect their encryption keys. Those keys are random numbers, very long random numbers, and are meant to be impossible for hackers to guess. But when companies are careless with how they generate or protect these keys, it doesn't matter how strong the random number generator is. This is part 2 of a series on random number generators. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I suggest starting there. In that episode, we looked at how random numbers make video games unpredictable and fun, and why computers struggle to create numbers that are truly random. In this episode of How Hacks Happen, we're going to explore the world of random numbers in cybersecurity, how they're supposed to make our data and devices safe, and how sloppy practices can make them meaningless. And let's start with one of the strongest algorithms in modern cryptography, AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard. AES was chosen by the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST. This happened back in 2001 after years of putting out calls for new encryption algorithms and then lots of testing and vetting. This thing has been tested within an inch of its life. And now, AES is the gold standard for encrypting data around the world. Everything from the bank apps on your phone to your phone itself, your cloud storage, pretty much everything. AES is a symmetric algorithm, meaning the same key is used to encrypt and decrypt the data. And AES is virtually unbreakable when used correctly. So how does randomness fit in with AES? For context, let's compare with video games. In a game, the seed determines how the world is built. In AES, the encryption key, which is just a very long random number, determines how your data is transformed into something unreadable, something that looks like gibberish to a hacker. In games, if someone figures out the seed, maybe they can speedrun or the game isn't as unpredictable or fun. The stakes are kind of low, but in cybersecurity, if someone guesses or predicts your encryption key, the stakes are massive. Stolen money, stolen data, stolen identities, and companies having to send out breach notices. There's a lot. This is why the bar is so high for AES and why it's been tested so rigorously. AES keys, the encryption keys, are enormously long random numbers. And there's more than 100 billion possible combinations. And this makes it nearly impossible for a hacker to guess the key. When AES is used correctly to encrypt databases or secure your web browsing, even if a hacker listens in or breaks into the server, the data is gibberish without the key. And the random number behind that key is what makes it so strong. And encrypting and decrypting with AES is super fast, which makes it a great choice for web browsing. So the information that gets sent back and forth is decrypted nearly instantaneously. Here's how it works. When you navigate to a website, one that has a little lock on it up on the address bar, it also begins with HTTPS. And those two things tell you that the communication between your browser and the website is secure. It's going to be encrypted. So to make this happen, the first thing your browser and the website server do is perform what's called a handshake. They exchange a little information and they agree on the flavor of AES that they're going to use for encryption, because there's a few different versions, all of them secure. Now at this point, nothing has been encrypted. The browser and server are just saying hello and exchanging a few pleasantries. Now the two of them need to figure out what that AES encryption key will be. They can't just do a thing where one of them generates a random number for the key and sends it over to the other side, because again, nothing is being encrypted at this point. If they did that, a hacker listening in could just grab the encryption key and then they'd be able to decrypt everything and the whole point of the security would be lost. So the browser and the server use a special encryption algorithm to calculate a long random number that they'll use as the AES encryption key. The math of how they do this is a little complicated, so I won't get into it here, but it's based on the mathematical principles in the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, which I talk about a little bit in the Crypto Wars episode, and I also go over in detail in my book, The Art and Math of Cryptography. But if you can just accept for the moment that the browser and the server do some math gymnastics and both sides independently come up with the exact same very long random number. And that becomes the AES key that's going to be used for both encryption and decryption, and they each came up with it on their own, so it never got sent over that unsecure connection. Now from then on, all the traffic between the browser and the server is encrypted with this key using whatever flavor of AES that they are using. To a hacker, all this traffic looks like gibberish, and they don't have a hope of cracking it out of the so many billions of combinations that it could be. They can't even crack it, even with the fastest supercomputers running through every combination. And on top of that, the HTTPS protocol freshens things up with a new key every few minutes. The browser and server just have another quick chat to calculate a new key, and they continue the session. This protocol for internet browsing has been honed and refined and perfected over the past couple of decades, and it's about as secure as it can get. AES encryption is also used for more static purposes, like encrypting a company's database of customers. A company would want to encrypt this on their server, so if a hacker got into the server, they at least wouldn't be able to do anything with that database. Now, for this type of use case, there isn't such a well-established protocol. And quite often, the company generates one key and encrypts the database, and that's the only key they ever use. One and done. And once that's done, they tuck the key away somewhere. But where do they put it? You need fast access to it, so you can be looking at the database when you need to, but you need to keep it away from hackers. So where's a good place to hide it? Sometimes, in an attempt to make encryption and decryption fast, the company stores the key right inside the encryption code. It's hard-coded in there, or in some configuration file on the same server. This is not a good idea. If a hacker gets into the server, they can easily grab the key and the database, and the precaution of encrypting the database is completely useless. This was one of the problems with the Equifax breach, one of many. The database was encrypted, but the encryption key was stored in plain text right there on the same server, right alongside all the data in the database. Now, there are secure ways to store the key, but these cost money and take extra work. A company could use a key management system where the keys are tucked away on a server somewhere like an Amazon or Azure server, and any decryption happens by sending a little bit of data to the server, and the server decrypts it or encrypts it, and then they send it back. This puts in an extra layer of security where the server will check for normal request traffic and flag anything that looks like weird hacker activity, like a request to decrypt the entire database. The company could also use a hardware security module, which is a physical piece of equipment that performs the same task as that exterior server. The keys live inside the module. They never leave. And anytime you want to encrypt or decrypt something, you send it into that module and then it'll come popping back out. This is actually how the Apple iPhone does its security, which is top of the line. I'll talk about that a little later in this episode. Now, here's the problem. Not every device uses randomness correctly. This has started to become a bigger problem now that so many devices are connected to the internet, like thermostats, garage doors, smart bulbs, home alarm systems, virtual assistant devices like Alexa and Google Home, baby monitors, security cameras, solar panels, even the controls at industrial plants, and even our own cars. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. This world of devices connected to the internet we refer to as the Internet of Things, or IoT for short. Internet of Things is a sort of catch-all term to describe these devices and their interconnectivity. Like if you have an old thermostat with no Wi-Fi capabilities, you're going to replace it, you might say, hey, I'd like to upgrade this to be part of the Internet of Things. Well, in reality, I'm not sure anybody really talks like that except my cybersecurity friends. But you get the idea. And even we never say Internet of Things. We always refer to it by its acronym, IoT. It's not hard to see that over the past 20 years, IoT devices have become part of our everyday lives. I can set the thermostat in my living room, even if I'm on the other side of town, or see the view from my security cameras, even if I'm thousands of miles away. And would I ever want to go back to the old way? No way! IoT devices make life a lot more convenient, so I don't think they're going anywhere soon. But one of the issues with IoT devices is that because they use the internet to connect, they need security of some kind to keep them safe from hackers. Like, do you really want just anybody who walks by your house to be able to open your garage door? I didn't think so. You might think that IoT devices could just use the same super secure methods I described earlier, where your browser talks to a website and everything is fully protected with AES encryption. But IoT devices can't, because they're small by nature and lightweight, meaning they have smaller chips and less memory than PCs, meaning IoT devices don't have the processing power or storage space of a PC, and they often run on batteries, which limits their power overall. This means developers of IoT devices have to get inventive about how they're going to cram a decent amount of security into something that fits in the palm of your hand, or a device that's engineered to do one specific thing really well and nothing else. And they're trying to keep it as small as possible because that costs less. It's a tall order, and sometimes it doesn't go so well. In 2021, researchers discovered a critical flaw in billions of IoT devices. Their random number generators sometimes failed, and instead of producing a unique random seed, they handed over very weak and predictable numbers for the seed, sometimes just a string of zeros. Then the second failure was that the random number generator then took this weak seed and produced a weak random number. So this means that the encryption key protecting a router, a garage door opener, a smart camera, whatever, the keys weren't random at all and could be very easy for a hacker to guess. Once hackers realized this, they could break in, steal data, even take control of the device. devices relied on processors from ARM, ARM, a British company whose chip designs are everywhere. To save developers from reinventing the wheel, ARM provides them with a library of cryptographic functions called embedTLS, MBEDTLS. Developers could just call different commands from this library to make encryption work. Nice solution. The system works like this. The device has a hardware abstraction layer, or HAL, H-A-L, to work with the cryptography commands. A layer in cybersecurity just means some piece of software, usually, maybe hardware, that does a specific job. And we call it a layer because we don't know what it's going to be. It's just going to be something there that's going to do that job. In this case, a HAL, hardware abstraction layer, is a piece of software that the device manufacturer provides. It's going to grab something random as the seed for embedTLS to use. Remember in the Part 1 episode when we talked about clock values being used as a seed for the RNG? HALs should grab something more random, like they might take the electrical static that's coming off of a chip. That's pretty random. I'll talk more about that in the next episode, how that really works, but for now, just accept that the HAL is going to grab something random, truly random, not the clock, to use as a seed for embedTLS. Then that seed gets passed on to embedTLS, and then embedTLS does its crypto math magic and turns that seed into a long random number that can be used as an encryption key. When it worked, the system was great. But once in a while, the HAL would fail for one reason or another, like it just couldn't grab the electrical noise, or what it grabbed was kind of weak or lame, and it wasn't going to make a good seed. Instead of the HAL saying, hey, I need to make another try, this seed isn't going to cut it, it would just pass the bad seed data to embedTLS. And then embedTLS accepted this seed without question and created weak, predictable keys, sometimes just a series of zeros. Now, ARM fixed the issue in 2021, and embedTLS now checks seeds more carefully, and vendors updated their HALs. But there are still billions of older devices out there, and many will never get updates, and they'll always be vulnerable. Well, at least ARM has some kind of security mechanism, because according to a recent study by Fortinet Security, one of the largest network security vendors in the world, quote, the overwhelming majority of IoT device network traffic is unencrypted, making confidential and personal data vulnerable to a malware attack such as ransomware or other form of data breach or theft. This includes IoT devices used for medical imaging and patient monitoring, as well as security cameras and printers. Yikes. Okay, I need a palate cleanser, so let's talk about a system that gets it right, the Apple iPhone. It's no secret that I'm a huge fan of iPhone security. I wish every manufacturer took this much time and care with their devices' security. Apple has some of the strongest consumer security on the planet. The entire phone is encrypted with keys tied to your passcode. A bunch of different keys that do different things, all working together in beautiful concert. There's one main key, and pretty much everything stored on the phone is encrypted with this key. You can set it up so that if someone enters the wrong passcode 10 times, this key is erased, so none of the data can be decrypted. It's actually a genius way to effectively wipe the phone clean very quickly. None of the data itself is actually erased. The main key is just deleted, making all the data stored on the phone look like gibberish to anyone poking around in there. Apple uses a concept called a secure enclave, which is a portion of the main chip where all the encryption and decryption takes place. This is a similar idea to the hardware security module I mentioned earlier, a piece of hardware specifically devoted to generating and storing keys and doing all the encryption and decryption. One of the pieces of information used to generate all the keys on any one iPhone is a long random number that's burned into its chip at the time of manufacture, called a hardware key. The hardware key is different for each chip, and Apple doesn't track these keys as they burn them in and put them in phones. The hardware key is tucked away inside the secure enclave. Even if you grab an iPhone and tear it apart, getting at this hardware key is extremely difficult. And it wouldn't be worth it for a hacker to go to all that trouble just for one phone, unless it belonged to the president or something. The randomness, the hardware protections, the design, they all combine to make the iPhone a fortress. Android devices are pretty secure too, but the iPhone stands out as an example of near perfect security. So why aren't garage door openers or smart light bulbs this secure? The answer is resources. Apple employs many engineers dedicated to security. A garage door opener manufacturer might have one person or none, or a developer told to look into it for an afternoon. Security costs money, and for many IoT vendors, it's just not a priority. So what can you do to retain security for yourself? Step 1 is to do your homework. Before you buy a device that's going to connect to the internet, skim the security specs. If you see mentions of AES or another established cryptographic algorithm like RSA, and it's from a reputable manufacturer, you're probably good. And of course, check customer reviews and do a search on the device name plus words like breach or security. Step 2 is to always accept security upgrades or patches on your devices when the manufacturer offers them. Any IoT device purchased prior to 2021 is possibly going to need a patch for that ARM library I talked about in this episode, but the manufacturer should be offering one, and it should be something that you can just download and install. Lastly, watch the logs for any devices you use. In the same way you check your credit card statements, look for unusual activity on your devices. And don't ever be afraid to contact customer service and ask them what something on the log means. You're a customer. You can certainly ask. Connected devices bring us much more convenience, but also more risk. But with a little diligence, you can catch any issues that might arise and keep those random numbers working in your favor, not a hacker's. This is Michelle Bousquet from How Hacks Happen, checking up on those random number generators so you don't have to. But if you want to do the same, please do. The more we're all informed about how cybersecurity works, the safer we'll all be. You can learn more about how random number generators work in cybersecurity in my book, The Art and Math of Cryptography, available at Amazon.com.